from the Penn Libraries.
All right, hi everyone, I'm Elliot. I took Professor Fader's class last semester and I'm going to be a teaching assistant for it next semester. And I also am a research assistant at Wharton Customer Analytics Initiative, and Professor Fader is sitting 5 feet in front of me. So you can trust me to make, lots of unbiased statements. So I wanted to talk a bit about the tech integrated classroom, but from a student's perspective. Because I'll be covering a lot of the same stuff that Professor Fader just covered in this presentation, but thinking about how this looks from a student end. So in terms of why I'm talking about this course, Applied Probability Models in Marketing/Stat 476, I think it's important to note that it's a large lecture class, because that's been a big topic of discussion in the faculty panel, how to extend a lot of the engaging discussion and involvement that you can get in like a small seminar course, but scaling that to a large lecture course, since that in reality is what a lot of students are in. And so this course, don't just take it from us, it has a 3.8 course quality on average on Penn Course Review. And in terms of student comments, you can see students described it as the best course at Wharton, the best course I've taken at any level in my academic career, and a life-changing course. And of course, I always take Penn Course Reviews with several grains of salt, but when you have an exceptional rating like that, that says a lot. And so I want to talk about what contributes to a course being so exceptional for the student experience. And I think a huge part of it is technology integration. And so just from day one, the course is very, very well integrated in terms of the week before class even starts, Professor Fader sends out a project and says, hey, look at this, here's some customer retention information for a few years. Try to predict what'll happen by year 12. And so right from the start, that gets you just looking into these ideas, and even though you're not really sure what you're doing, you're just trying to get familiarized, thinking about these concepts. And just from day one, the course is not based in passive lecturing, but in more active guided discussion. There's a lot of cold calling. And so that's a way that a large lecture can be interactive and engaging. And so it's more of like, so what should I do next? And then Professor Fader will call on someone and say, yeah, help me out here, what should I try next? And it's a really neat way that we work through problem solving together without just having entirely project-based in-class learning, but also not having entirely just lecture-based learning. And it's a neat in-between. And so the way I like to describe that is as discovery-based and investigation-based learning. And Canvas is also very well utilized in this course. Each lecture has its own Canvas page. There's comprehensive materials. You can see there's the class recordings, there's all the documents, the PowerPoints and spreadsheets used in class, optional additional readings that are other papers relevant to the topics covered in class, the homework, complete with slide decks and full recordings. And so each class session feels almost like its own self-contained seminar with lots of interesting stuff that you can go back and reference later. And if you really like the content from one week, you can go back and go, I'm going to take a closer look at some of these optional papers because I'm really curious to see some more applications of this. And so speaking of recorded lectures, Professor Fader already talked a lot about this, so I don't want to be too redundant, but again, there's no need to take meticulous notes, and Professor Fader actually discourages taking notes because this allows students to pay closer attention and allows for a more engaging experience. Because I find that in a lot of lecture classes, I'm just spending the whole time frantically trying to write down everything the professor's writing on the board because I don't want to miss that one equation or that one important concept. And so I'm not really listening to what's being said. I'm just trying to write everything down so that I can refer to it later. But this way I can just go back and find it later, and that allows for more genuine engagement. So like I said, students can go back and find that one thing someone said that they can't quite remember. And for complicated ideas, if I didn't understand something the first time around, I can go back and look at it again. So for instance, what if I can't remember the expected value of the exponential gamma distribution? You go back into the lecture, boom, there it is. What if I want to see the time that Professor Fader's wife stole his keys off of his desk? I can go back and see that there. I didn't quite understand the intuition behind empirical Bayes methods the first time around. So I can go back and find all the slides on that, rewatch the explanation, and try to really tease it out. And so that way, with such a large class, everyone's moving at a different pace. And so you move at a reasonable pace, and then students who aren't quite getting it the first time around can go back and rewatch it. And I think that's really valuable. And especially, as Professor Fader said, with having 2 sections of the class, it's really neat to be able to then go back and go, I didn't quite get this in the undergrad section, but let me rewatch the MBA section video. Maybe he explained it a little bit differently, or someone might have had a question similar to what I'm not understanding. Or maybe I want to see the time that Professor Fader's son smashed a cake in his face. All of it's there. And then another huge part of this course is communication. And Canvas is a great forum for this. There's lots of discussion threads. People can ask course-related questions. This is me asking a dumb question, and then Professor Fader being like, I'm not really sure what you're asking. And it's really great because the TAs, the professor, and other students all regularly monitor the threads and ask and answer questions. So both the videos and the discussion threads are a great way to extend learning outside of the classroom. So then, in terms of grading, since that's a big topic of today, one word for grading, whoopee. My favorite acronym, as coined by the brilliant Daniel McCarthy, I believe, who is a PhD student in the stat department. So, as Fader said, it's anonymous, double-blind peer grading, but there's accountability built into the algorithms so that people can't try to purposely sabotage the scores by giving a good paper a bad rank or anything like that. And so it's a very reliable and very comprehensive grading system. And so from a student perspective, this is what the platform looks like. You go in, you get 5 papers, and then on the right you can see there, please give a rank for this paper, multiple choice 1 through 5. You look at the paper, you can leave anonymous comments. I left lots of really mean constructive comments on people's papers. And so you get to learn from seeing other people's work, and you get to be a part of the grading process. And there's a lot more transparency than there is if there's 3 TAs and the professor and everybody's taking 30 papers, and you're not really sure where your grade's coming from. And again, there's a lot of transparency. You get to see the relative quality of all the papers that your paper was ranked against in each batch of 5 and stuff like that, and you can see your rank overall in the class. And it's really valuable in learning how to distinguish what makes a good paper and what makes a poor paper. Because I think I learned a lot by looking at these and being like, okay, I see what people did that might have made their paper not quite as good, or maybe made their paper really stand out. So again, what makes a good course great? And I think it's different for every class, but for this course in particular, it's extensive recording, documentation of course materials for accessibility. And so this really allows for learning rather than just frantic note-taking to be happening in class. And it can be referred to even after the course is over. I still go back and watch the videos or go back and look at old slides when stuff comes up in more advanced coursework, and I'm like, I don't quite remember this. Let me go back and look in the old lectures. And the lecture format is really based on investigative, engaging lectures, and there's real-time problem solving. And it feels more like a crowdsourced effort rather than just being talked at for 3 hours. And so then outside of class learning is also facilitated by peer grading and discussion. And so it really enables you to put in as much time into the course as you need to, and also move at a pace that works for you. Yeah, that's it.